Welcome to the Collective Genius Podcast, the show for real estate investors who are looking to scale.
Welcome into the Collective Genius Podcast, a weekly podcast for real estate investors that want to grow and scale their businesses. I am lucky. Every single week I get to talk to elite real estate investors across the country that are growing and scaling their businesses to beyond their wildest dreams and maybe what they ever wanted their business to look like. But here they are, and another guest this week joining us from Cleveland, Ohio. Please welcome my friend, our guest, Mr. Brandon Moherman, correct?
That's right. That's right.
Moherman. It's spelled
Yep.
M-O, but it's an A sound because it's German, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Yes.
Welcome in from the great state of OH.
IO, baby. Yep. Thank you,
Yes,
Leon.
yes.
Very nice to be on here. Appreciate it.
Yes. So let's start with this. You're in Cleveland. I love Cleveland. I know a lot of people make fun of Cleveland. I don't. I think it's a great city, especially for one that for in real estate. So tell us what the model looks like today. We'll get into what it used to look like, but what is the model in Cleveland, Ohio for you right now?
Yeah, the model is about 90% rehab. So we take as much product down as we can. And the other 10, maybe 20% at times, we do novation. So we got completely out of rentals. We got completely out of assignments or wholesaling. And we just find, for many different reasons, it's a better customer experience when we're controlling the entire thing from start to finish. And we want to take those big chunks of cash that we generate from the rehabs and put them into some bigger multifamily projects and hold those long term. So we like to do other things with the passive income versus the single family. And then also the novations, why we still do 10, 20% innovation is if anything's a little bit too risky. So we run everything through our underwriting model. We have a in-house kind of proprietary risk analysis model that we develop. If we run something through that model and it doesn't make sense to purchase it, then we still pitch the novation. So we're still able to make a few dollars, able to have that white glove service and selling the product for the individual, but we're not going to take that risk in owning the product.
You weren't here when I first met you. I mean, we first met, I don't know if you remember this, but it was right before the world changed with COVID. I think it was December of 2019 that you first applied to this, to the Collective Genius. And at that time, I remember talking to you. This was pre-COVID, and your model was mostly BRRRR strategy, holding single families. So, that's everyone's that starts in this business. They read a book that tells them they've got to hold assets, and that's where most people
Right.
start. But that's not where you are anymore. What caused that shift?
Yeah, a lot of different things. The biggest one, and this is a 100% true story. I won't name any names, but the lending environment got really tough when COVID hit. And our model, we would rehab and put tenants in houses, and we package about 10 of them together, do a big cash out refinance. And that big cash out, that the money from the cash out would be the capital that we'd use for our overhead or buy a new product or new things. So we really were reliant on those package refinance deals. And we had a deal that was ready to close middle of March of 2020, right when COVID was heating up. And funny thing is, this is a true story. We were supposed to fund, it was roughly $1 million deal, just under $1 million for 10 properties. We were ready to fund the day after our governor DeWine considered us a shelter-in-place state. And the lender that we were working with at that time had a caveat that said any states that are shelter in place, they no longer are lending to. And so on funding day, they pulled the plug.
Mm.
So that was, you know, a rude awakening and learned a lot of lessons through that. Learned how capital worked, how some companies actually go and raise money in tranches and have that money set aside. Some companies are just like a mortgage broker to where they um, originate the loan and then sell the loan off to Wall Street. And at that time, no one on Wall Street was buying these loans anymore. So that was a tough lesson to learn at that time. Secondly, with the BRRRR strategy, even though you are pulling out the majority of the money you have put into the property at 75% of value or 80% of value, you're still leaving 20%, 25% of equity on the table. So it's even with that strategy when you have overhead and you have people, you're trying to scale, you're trying to hire more people, you're trying to spend more money in marketing, trying to grow your volume, it just it just doesn't make sense because you're always leaving 20, 25% on the table. So we really a lot of lessons we learned during those years, and we didn't make that a shift right away. It took about a year, 18 months of hard lessons before we're like, hey, this doesn't make sense anymore. We sold off all of our rentals and we went and said, we need to focus on cash. We need to focus on the big chunks of cash that really drive our business so we can scale this to a safe enough spot from an operational perspective to where we can go and do some other things. But until we get to a spot from a cash standpoint, from an operational standpoint, that makes sense for us, we just going to continue to focus on fix and flips or some other short-term exit strategy.
So, for those that have listened to this pod every single week, there's a theme developing here, and I hope everyone is listening to it. I also hope that those that have been taking this to heed for many years now, the elite investors are hopefully they're hearing this and they're going, yes, I've been doing it right for a very long time. It's that cash focus. Assets are great, but when you're growing a team and scaling a team, it is very hard to build a fire without oxygen. And your example is one that we've shared now for many weeks with some of our members that have learned that lesson. And a lot of times, we as investors, especially entrepreneurs, have to go through a lot of this, even though someone will tell us. We have to go through it on our own to understand the why behind it. Yeah, I understand that's what I'm supposed to do, but until you get kicked in the mouth or have a black swan event like COVID happened, you weren't the only one, Brandon. There were a good number of our members that were set for cash out refis right as those, the market was still in the twos and threes and fours. And
Yeah.
there were a lot of people that were waiting for this big six-figure chunk, whether that was from single family or multifamily, to come back. And obviously, when that happened, there was still opportunities for that to happen after the fact, but that wasn't going to get you through the next 4 to 6 months or beyond because you needed that closing at that given time, and you weren't the only ones. And that's why cash heavy, having as much cash as you can on hand, the lessons, hopefully everyone that's listening to this is taking heed to that. Obviously, I understand you got to go through your own trials and tribulations, but success leaves breadcrumbs, and there's lessons here that obviously Brandon and our other members that have been on this show for the last couple of weeks, you've heard a lot of cash, cash, cash to be able to roll into bigger assets as multifamily, as you mentioned earlier,
Yep.
Brandon. So that strategy of BRRRR, is one that when I first got in this business, it didn't have an acronym. It just, you did it and you're like, oh, that makes sense. It's cacked out refi, tax free. And to your point, what people don't think about until they need it is that money per deal that they're leaving in the property that they're not cashing out, that 10,000, that 20,000, that 30,000 per deal. If you're doing hundreds of deals, that's a big amount of liquidity that you're giving up. You didn't learn that strategy, I'm guessing in school. So let's go back before you got into real estate and BRRRR strategy and homes. What were you doing and what was the goal? What were you planning on doing as a profession?
Absolutely. So I grew up very blue collar environments right outside of Youngstown, Ohio. So for those you don't know, it's in between Pittsburgh and Cleveland. right in the Rust Belt, a lot of steel mills that closed down, and grew up 2 miles south of Lordstown GM plant. So it's no longer there, but it was the only plant in the entire world where the Chevy Cavalier, the Chevy Cobalt, the Chevy Cruze came out of. So a lot of manufacturing where I grew up. I was raised by my grandparents. They didn't go to college. No one in my family went to college. Lot of instilled some great old school core values in me: respect, do what you say you're going to do, work ethic, grit, all the things in a good blue collar environment. But past that, in terms of creating a business or what I should do with my life, there wasn't much guidance past that. So I really, when I went to school, I went to a school. I loved sports in high school, just like everyone else. I was pretty good at football, and picked a school based on where I wanted to play football. All right, I had no idea what I was doing back then. I was 18 years old. Uh, and then originally, so it was a private school outside of Cleveland, right by the Cleveland airport, and quickly realized, because I was paying for my own college, quickly realized that that wasn't the direction that I wanted to go. Sports were not it. It was so after the second year, I really got into my studies. I actually switched my major. I came in as business. I switched it to physics. Always loved math. Always was good with numbers. I could do numbers better than the written word. So and being that I was paying for my own schooling, I wanted to go in a direction that was I get the biggest bang for my buck. I knew I wanted to push myself as hard as I could in school. I picked a really hard major, and I knew that I could always go the technical route and then gear it back to more of a business type high level management if I wanted to. So right out of school, I became a mechanical engineer. I worked for an aerospace company for a couple years. That company got bought out and they're restructuring, so I moved over to Rigid. So the Rigid tools in Home Depot. They're so that's a branded product line, but they're actually a commercial plumbing tool manufacturer, billion-dollar company that are headquartered in Elyria, just a half hour west of Cleveland. So their headquarters is right outside of Cleveland. I went and worked for them for about 5 years, and as an engineer, also marketing manager, do a couple things. But the key was, ever since college, I I guess you go back to even before college. What got me through is I worked construction jobs. So coming from very blue collar is I was always doing, I actually did concrete from the age of 16, 17, all the way through college, did a little bit after college. I'd do it on the weekends or when I come home for the summer. So always doing blue collar type construction trades. And I just loved it. I loved working with my hands, and that just kind of continued after college. I I really liked construction, really liked real estate. Was going to a bunch of meetups. I bought my first house right out of school. Had some buddies from school rent it out for me. Kind of house hacking type thing with the house. They rented out for a room, and did a lot of work on the house myself, and just continued to learn through my 20s. That was the biggest thing, is I never stopped learning. I never stopped pushing. Everyone sees I'm 36 now, and a lot of my friends or whatever, if they see what I'm doing, like, oh man, I would love to do that. That looks so cool. But they don't see the 15 years, the 20 years of grind that came before it. And that was the biggest thing. I was grinding for about 7, 8 years before I even left corporate, doing stuff on nights and weekends. So it was always in me. I love real estate for many different reasons we can get into later, but ended up leaving corporate when I was 27, back in 2019, and been doing it ever since.
You obviously, you mentioned several times there, the blue collar side of it, the engineering piece. As for those that are have been listening for a while now, a year plus here with the CG podcast, those there's several members. There's, I think, the highest majority are people that are former engineers or car sales, are two of the biggest that I see that make that transition into real estate. You obviously were house hacking, but when did you know that this could be a career and that you would eventually leave your chosen profession at that time?
So it was always a goal of mine. I wasn't exactly sure in my early 20s if I was going to start a construction company or go into real estate, but it was always a goal of mine to go off on my own. The corporate world was unfortunate, and I worked my butt off in corporate and worked my way up, but it was never the end goal for me. I really just tried to save up some cash on the side, do some things to get me prepared to go off on my own. So, and then I got married when I was 25. It's kind of young, if you look at it nowadays, but that right around the time I got married and I turned from that adolescent 20-year-old kid to really waking up and saying, what the heck do I want out of my life? That's when the entrepreneurial fire started.
So
Yep.
so you're 25. You make this decision. I think you said you're 25 when you made this decision. Where does it start? How do you get started?
Yeah. Like I said, it didn't start. I made the decision that I was going to leave corporate when I was 25. Didn't end up doing it until I was 27, 2 years later, and and it really was about 7, 8 years of reading every book I possibly could, going to as many meetups and networking events as I could, paying, these gurus, local gurus, $2,000 for a weekend class or a month class, like making every mistake you possibly can make, but just saying yes to everything. Um, I don't have, any silver bullet or any easy path. I did it. I didn't, the biggest thing for me, I will say, is my entire life I've searched for a mentor. Yeah, I didn't have a brother. I was raised by my grandparents, so my grandfather was pretty old. He couldn't do a lot of stuff with me. So I was always searching for that person that could really guide me through life and guide me. And I would call business owners in my mid 20s and try to set up meetings with them, offer to work for them for free to try to learn stuff. And I just never connected with anybody. So for me, it was books. I really connected with books. I read as many books as I possibly could, go to as many meetups as I could, just kind of throwing ideas around, and then just doing it trial and error. Um, I will say I didn't when I was 27, I didn't exactly just start this uh just on a whim. I was a little bit smart in the fact that I was smart enough to know that I didn't know anything. And specifically when I learned about buying houses at a discount. I talked to so let me take it back. I talked to when I go to those meetup groups, I talked to a lot of old timers, and they'd always talk about how they got wiped out during 2008, and they were over leveraged and blah blah blah. Then you talk to the one guy that said no, he made it through 2008, he excelled, and I was like, okay, what's the difference? And the one guy wasn't chasing numbers, he wasn't chasing volume, he just purely bought good deals. And when you start to see the difference between the people that got wiped out and the people that, made it through, it's they focused on the right numbers regardless of what the market was doing. And when I started to learn about buying direct to consumer, it clicked very quickly that this is the only sustainable way to run this business. Because we tried to submit offers on the MLS, we try to buy, and every now and again you'll get a good deal, but most of the time when you have a bunch of competition, the cost is going to get inflated. So around that time, in all the networking events I went to, I ran into a uh, gentleman that was a HomeVestors franchise owner, and he kind of talked me into going that route. And I said, you know what? This makes a lot of sense because I know that I want to buy direct to consumer. I know with my engineering background and my construction background, operationally, I can make this business work, but I have no idea how the hell to go to market to someone and get in front of them and negotiate a house at a discounted price because I just haven't done it before then. So HomeVestors did that for it. It created that gap from corporate to being able to do all the marketing on my own. Did HomeVestors now? I'm not going to say anything good or bad about HomeVestors. It was I always say when people ask about the home investors experience, I said it was the two best decisions I ever made to get into it and to leave it. Right. I was in it for 2 years. They got me started out. They They showed me the correct way to sit at someone's kitchen table to do in person, face to face, to provide a solution. They introduced me to the Sandler sales process that we still teach every day in our business. I love that model, and how to do this business the right way. And then they also provided us with the marketing, very expensive marketing, but they provided us with the marketing to allow us to build up those cash reserves enough to where I could separate from them and do it under our own brand. So that was a good transition point. The HomeVestors experience, we did it for about 2 years, and that was a great transition for us to then go and do it on our own.
So much wisdom in what you just said there. Unpack it a little bit. I do want to go back to the mentor. So often people come into the
Yeah.
business and they just try to do it on their own brand. And, even if they don't know what they're doing, they'll just say, I'll figure it out. I'll watch YouTube. I'll read these books and I'll just go and do it. And some make it through that. But I would argue that talking to the people from 2008 and listening to the ones that failed and listening to the ones that succeeded and made it through, you will get a difference and you will get a better blueprint listening to the one that has had the most success in an up and down market. And I can to continue to unpack this. It is always, you always win when you buy, right? And it's something that, because people want to scale, they're having to feed this machine. And so they lose track of what we're all searching for, which is, at the end of the day, deals. Deals are opportunities that make money. and
Yep.
and hopefully a standard that you've set within your organization, especially as you continue to grow. And I've always said in this group, sometimes because we have the different tiers, people are pushing to get to a certain tier. So they'll push, their numbers to get to 100 transactions or whatever the number is. They just this magical number of 100 doors or 100 deals, and they lose focus and lose track of what you're ultimately doing. You're offering a solution for a discounted price, which is equal to a deal. So I love every bit of that you just said there. You found a platform that gave you the foundation to get started. Love that piece of it. And you also realize at a certain point that it was a good foundation. Now I need to go to a higher level, to which you did. At what point did you find out about the Collective Genius? What year were you in your business at that time? I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but it was on the tail end of my HomeVestors experience because that was 2000 end of 2019, and then I remember I started with Collective Genius right after COVID. Um, yeah, it was right when COVID hit, so it's sometime that spring of 2020. So, how did I find out about Collective Genius? At that time, it was through a gentleman that was in our market that was in the group at that time, and I was kind of in one of his little local masterminds, and he mentioned it. I heard him say it multiple times, and finally I just asked him, "Hey, what the heck? What the heck is that?" And then I reached out to you guys.
Obviously, you joined right during COVID. Give me you remember your experience at your first, meeting, in-person meeting?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I remember the experience of trying to get home because I was in San Diego, California, and it was right when they were shutting everything
Oh, so
down,
you
and
joined.
we
That's right.
weren't
You
sure
joined
when.
March of 2020.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah. Well, yeah, that was my first like intro meeting,
That's
and
right.
I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get home. It was interesting, but just you know, the funny thing about my Collective Genius story that I think Leon, but rest don't, is I actually took a year off from Collective Genius. So I was in for 2020, 21. I think I took a year off in 22, and I've been with him ever since. And the reason I did is because Collective Genius was just a wealth of knowledge. It was a fire hose. There was just so much. And the problem was I would go to these meetings, I would take it all in, I'd write all this stuff down, I'd come back and throw it at kind of our makeshift team we had at the time and realize that I didn't have the resources to execute on any of this. So I was just trying to take too many ideas. So when I took a year away, I was like, I need to refocus this business. We need to get really in tune on execution, not just the ideas. And then I'll rejoin it when we're a little bit healthier. And now if I go to a meeting or I watch it online or whatnot, is I only take one, two, maybe three maximum of important concepts that we take back to the team and say, hey, yeah, we should definitely implement this. It's not that fire hose approach anymore. So it was a lot to take in those first couple years because I wasn't going about it the right way.
Out of the years that you've been with a member in this group, can you remember the thing that made the biggest impact on what your business looks like today?
Yeah. Uh it's first and foremost, it's being around great people, being around great people, that in a sense, we're all in different markets, so we're not technically competitors, but we are competing against one another, and no one really has a fear of sharing their best advice and helping one another. And it's a very unique group in that way. I was thinking about some other industries, the retail industry or construction industry, and there's not a lot of other industries that has a group like this where competitors are just willing to share great ideas with one another and help one another. So that first and foremost, just a testament to you and the rest of the guys of who's created this and has built it to what it is just making sure we have great people. For me personally, like I said, with the engineering background and really being able to focus on operations, that's something that I'm good at, systems, operations, people, and developing people. But marketing's always been something that's been a little bit difficult. Now I love branding. I love like I'm a visual person. I love to have a say in what the customer sees and the color scheme and feel like that. But when it comes to the execution of actually generating the lead, that's always not been my strong suit. So having and that's the most important thing in our businesses, right? Is if you can't generate a lead and then go and service that person, provide a solution to that person, you're not going to have a business no matter what your exit strategy is. So I've taken a lot of good marketing tips and a lot of good advice when it comes to generating leads. That's been the most impactful.
That's something you'll get plenty of within this group. People are always looking at what the gold standard is for that particular time, what's working, what's not working, which leads me to my next favorite question is, what do you feel like right now, if I had to give like a gold standard and said, hey, I need you to do a presentation on this tomorrow, what do you feel like you're doing really well right now, Brandon?
Yeah. Um, so a couple things. This I just want to give this to the audience that has changed my life. This isn't the one thing in the business, but this has changed my life. But going back to finding a mentor, I still my whole life I've searched for it. I still have searched for it till this day, and it just never connected. But with all the AI out there now, I've really started to connect with ChatGPT about 8 months ago, and I know it's been out longer than that, and people have been using it. And most of the people that I talk to want to leverage it to help it do something for it in its business, like, hey, create this for me, do this, and I do that. But it's really my sounding board and my board of directors. I built it to be my board of directors, and so I have all the mentors in the world on my board of directors. I have Sam Walton from Walmart. I have Elon Musk, Steve Jobs. Like I have, you could have Abraham Lincoln or Jesus Christ, right? Whatever you want, because if they wrote a book or history knows a lot about that person, AI now can tell you what that person would say in this situation or how they would advise you. And it's just an amazing gift that I've been given to use AI as my strategic power board or my mentors. Now I have any mentor I want that I haven't had in life. So it's changed my life really to use it in that respect. I do lean on it for advice a lot. Say, hey, how would this person how would this person advise me in this situation? And it's pretty spot on how that person would advise you. So that's my first key takeaway, um, that I'm doing right now that's changed my life.
So hold that one. I want to get the second one, but I just have to ask,
Yeah. Yeah.
is that a takeaway from Scott Meyer's presentation?
No, it wasn't other people have presented on that, but no, this is just something by pure need necessity. I was talking to ChatGPT one night. It's like, hey, I'm struggling with this, and it was giving me feedback like a mentor. And I was like, holy crap, this could be powerful. So it was just something that I came up with on my own. But I'm sure that a lot of people, a lot of other people come to that conclusion.
Not a lot, just one specifically in September. I encourage you to go back and watch this because
Yeah,
what you just
yeah,
described is exactly what Scott Myers presented on in September. We had a AI technology day on day 3, and he
yeah.
had presented that to our CEO level, and
Mhm.
they loved it so much. Like, we've got to share this and bring this to our premier level group. And if you go back and look at that presentation, Jesus was one of his bearded advisors.
Yeah,
I think Abraham Lincoln was one.
yeah.
Warren Buffett was another. It's almost to a T. I'm like, that you're describing as you're saying it. I'm like, that's Scott Meyer's presentation. So you should go back and watch it. I think there may be some things that you can take from his that he might be doing a little bit
Absolutely.
differently than you are.
And one other piece, now we're even. So that's my board of directors, right? That I use personally for any strategic decisions or anything personal in my life, but we're actually using it for all of our departments now. So in marketing, Seth Godin, who's written many books, so and I can't name off a couple other ones, but we have 4 or 5 of the best marketing minds on our marketing power board, right? So now our different departments have their own board of directors specific to their industry that they can go and ask different questions when we're trying to find out a strategic answer.
Love that. It's not just for you, it's for your team. And that's,
Yeah.
you want to talk about scale. We've had several members on here and several presentations that have been about, you know, true scale comes from when you develop people and people develop the business. You start with the people first and the business will always develop, especially, if the culture's right. And some in certain positions, the cog score and the
Yeah.
profile is right. There's some formula there, right? But it's developing people first. You said there was something else that I love that one for sure. Thank you for sharing that. You
Yeah.
said there was one other thing that is working really well for you
Yeah.
right now.
The biggest thing that's changed our trajectory over the last 18 to 24 months is we got very disciplined about vertical integration and taking back ownership over some things that we were outsourcing or using vendors or things because it's just proven time and time again, if it's not in-house, it's not going to be done with the same care, same quality, the same customer experience that your expectations would be. It doesn't matter. It could have all the good intentions to start out. It's just the way it is. If you truly want to build a vertically integrated brand that can help the consumer from the start to the finish, you have to bring as much in-house as you can. And it's difficult because you've got to hire more, you got to have more processes and systems in place. But now you can control, and for us, it's all about the customer experience. If you can control the customer experience end to end, you can truly create a unique service or product that no one else can duplicate. And for us, over the last 24 months, that's really what we focused in. We're bringing it in-house. We're focusing on vertical integration. So there's one of two ways to scale in this business, right? Horizontal expansion or vertical integration. You can you can take one simple exit strategy and do that in many markets, or you can say, no, I'm going to dominate this market and I'm going to dominate it from generating the lead all the way to the sales experience or whatever your exit strategy is. And every person that we ever looked into, you look at Carnegie with the steel industry, Rockefeller with the oil, any true person that built an empire or built a brand that can last the test of time is they focused on vertical integration first. They focused on dominating one small piece before they horizontally expanded. Because our goal 2 years ago was okay, we're kind of doing okay, we're not doing great, but the only way to scale this thing is let's go into other markets. And I hear that a lot with real estate investors is let's expand to other markets, expansion. But we're like, wait a second. If we truly look at the market size in any given market right now, and don't quote me on this, but back when I was with HomeVestors, they said it was about 10% of all home sales were sold to an investor. And with everything out there, I know it's like high teens now. It's probably like, let's say 1 in 5 or 1 in 6 houses get sold to investor. If you look at the number of home sales in your given market, that's hundreds, if not thousands, of potential deals in your market that you're not tapping into. So expanding into another market probably is not the best thing. Just go out and get more deals in your market. And that really shifted it for us. And we got better in all aspects of the company. And we built accountability and we changed our metrics and things that we thought we were doing good, we got better at. So that was a big, just focusing on vertical integration was a big one for us.
If I could clip any of this podcast, it would be that portion right there. You just described the evolution of the real estate entrepreneur that finally, usually they get there years 5 through 7, maybe 7 through 9, where they truly understand what scale looks like. It's developing people, developing your operations, your systems, your process, your people, and then controlling as much as you possibly can control. Doesn't mean that you can't use vendors to get to a certain point. You still may use some, but controlling all pieces of the customer experience and making sure that every single review is a good one, because you know that the people that are handling all of those conversations are trained by you internally and the standards are high. Everything that you just gave there is a masterclass of what people should be focused on. Instead, they'll have bad operations and they're expanding into other markets. And I don't know about you, but something that's already bad, expanding it into another market, it's going to be worse. 99.9% of the time running thin on a bad foundation. It's going to collapse. And when the reality is you just needed to go deeper, not only in your own market, but also with your own team. Love every bit of that. I do have 2 quick things here before we get you out of here. You clearly made a transition here. A lot of people get in this industry, man. They want to own doors. What's your advice for those people now that you've gone that route and now are focused on bigger assets? As the biggest thing first and foremost you focus on is liquidity with the ability to take down bigger deals in the future. But you started on that path. What's your advice to those that are, focused on single family doors and just holding in general?
Yeah. So the advice I could give to anyone is be in this business for the right reasons. So I've never went into this business because it was the quote unquote easy way to make money. I was passionate about this business. I loved everything about real estate. I loved construction, and I saw it. The other part of this is it's even coming more fruition now. I saw it as one of the best industries where I can develop a moat to build a company that lasts a lifetime and lasts multiple lifetimes. That's our why. So we can change as many lives as possible. It's not, we don't want to be the biggest and the most valuable company. We want to be the strongest and most durable company. And with AI disrupting every industry, with new things coming, labor getting harder and harder, real estate is one of those industries where you can look at and say, yeah, that might be around in 500 years. Yeah, that might. You're not sure what the hell, who knows what's going to be going on in 500 years. But out of every industry that right now, yeah, that has probably the highest percent chance to sustain a company for the next 500 years. So that is the longevity that we're looking at. Is we want a company that's going to be around for a very long time. And so we're in this for the right reasons. We want to do good with our internal culture. We also want to do good by the people that we help. And we want to use real estate and construction as the avenue to do that good. And when you look at it in that frame and that perspective, you're going to make the right decisions. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to follow the wrong. But what you're not going to do is you're not going to follow some cool fad trend of, oh, well, this guy's doing this or this is doing that, because you're going to have the lighthouse that always shows you the direction of your true north. And you're going to say, well, I'm going to do this because this is best for the customer. I'm going to do this because it's best for the brand. And I'm going to do this because it's best for us to get the rocket fuel, right? The cash needed to scale this thing. I'm not going to do it because some book said to do it. I'm not going to do it because someone else is doing it. I'm going to do it because it makes sense. And that's the biggest thing for us is we're always looking back to our true north and really where we want to take this thing, not just what the cool investment trends are. And I've been in those meetups, man, where everyone would come in and say, man, listen to how many doors I got. And they come up to me and how many doors you got? And my answer would always be the same. Not enough, not enough. I would never tell them because to me, that didn't matter. Those were the guys that I wouldn't see in a year. They'd disappear. Just walk around and ask how many doors. Who cares? Why? I can go down this path, but it frustrates the hell out of me, Leon. Why are we the only industry that walks around and asks each other how many doors we have? No other industry walks in the door and is like, hey, what was your EBITDA last quarter? Like, no one does that. Why do we care how many doors we have? We should be talking about profitability. We should be talking about customers we help. We should be talking about the houses that we brought back and put into the inventory cycle. We should be talking about the good we're putting out on the road. Who cares about doors, right? So that's a sore spot for me, to be honest, because I've had a lot of those conversations, and I just don't enjoy those conversations, to be honest with you.
Well said. Let's talk about what you're excited for here in 26. This is, the time and, beginning of the year, first quarter of the year, what you're most excited about in your market, mostly fixing and flipping in this market today. What are you most excited about?
I'm most excited about construction and leading that up into ground up development, because there's not a lot of ground up spec home development in our market that builds an affordable price point of, 1,500 to 1,800 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. A lot of other markets down in the South, that's normal. It's not normal in our market. And all the new builds going up in our market are 2,500 square foot plus expensive homes. There's nobody building new affordable housing inventory. So as we continue to expand our construction reach, we're really excited to start to get into ground up development this year, maybe into next year. We see construction, and you talk about all the time, that the real operators that can make it through the hard times are ones that have good construction. And we've heard that a lot. So we're trying to build that up.
They can add value. You truly added value here today, my friend. If people wanted to reach out to you, you talked about the value of membership, mentorship earlier. If people wanted to reach out to you, get a hold of you, how do they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. You can reach out to me via my email. It's B as in boy, my last name Moherman, Moherman at skymount.net. Reach out to me there. That'd probably be the best way.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your time. I know you're busy. Anybody that's running a construction company and does the volume that you do, your time is valuable. So I appreciate it here today, my friend.
Absolutely. Thank you, Leon. It's been a great time.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's always good to have a new conversation, learn some new things here today. Obviously, if you'd love to be in a room with members like Brandon, you already know how to get there. It's explorecg.com. There you'll find all the information you need to become a member of the Collective Genius. One of our 4 tiers, as long as you're doing at least 10 deals a year and you're a full-time real estate investor, we have a community for you. As Brandon said earlier, we got to find what you're ready for, meet you where you are today, and we have a tier for you. You fill out an application at that site at explorecg.com, and hopefully we'll see you on the other side of a consult and see if this is the right fit for you. For now, that's it. This week's Collective Genius podcast. We'll have another one for you next week. We will see you then.
New episodes every week. To learn more, visit explorecg.com, where real estate investors come to scale.